Silber. I'm a professional photographer.
Yeah, in fact, you got the license plates to prove it.
Press photographer, yeah. Those, as you can see, there's not very many of those. The cool thing about these plates is if there's any kind of national emergency or catastrophe or whatever, they'll let me in, and I can take shots of the president or whatever. But I was going to show you, this was not the actual first camera, but it was pretty much like this, my Brownie that I absolutely adore. This is what I learned with. And I'm going to talk about why you should actually start with a camera like this before you go to a camera like this. Because this baby is I love this camera. It's a Nikon D2X.
Yep. And
it will do anything, but if you don't know what to do with this one, you're going to have a hard time learning how to use this. We are at Long Ridge Ranch. This is Long Ridge Open Space Preserve on Skyline Boulevard.
We're way above Silicon Valley.
We're way above Silicon Valley. In fact, if you could go over this ridge right here where this little vineyard is and look down, you'd basically look down into Palo Alto, the upper Palo Alto Hills and Los Altos. So and right directly over that way is Santa Cruz. And I'm going to take a little walk down here and basically talk about some of the steps of photography as well as this land.
Yeah, you just wrote a book on photography, right?
I have an ebook that's going to be on my site any day now. It's just being polished up by my designer, and it'll be on the site.
And what's the book called?
Taking Memorable Photographs. 5 steps. And I'm going to talk about those 5 steps. First one is get to know your camera.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, what I actually recommend to new students or even kind of experienced photographers, and when I start out my classes, I give them a throwaway camera. Because I want them to not get hung up in this machine. They need to understand the basics, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, of getting a good shot. But if you've got a camera, you got to get to know how it works. And I actually do recommend reading the manual. As boring as it is, I've read my manual plenty of times. When you have a camera like this, or even a simple camera, you got to know what it does.
Yeah.
You also need to be confident that you can get outside this thing and not have it hang you up. Ansel Adams talks about when you view a camera, don't look at it as this kind of machine, mechanized thing, but as an extension of you. And you should feel that comfortable with your camera.
Right.
Okay. The next step is learning to frame a photograph. This is one of my shots. I cut a hole in it. I shouldn't have done that. But this is a little trick that Ansel Adams, or a tool that he used with his students. You take a 3x5 card and you cut it out the size of the photograph you're going to be taking. This is for a 35mm or a digital camera. If you were taking a square picture, you should use a square hole. And learn to go and see your picture with this card. And he'd send his students out looking for photographs. Now this is before learning to use this machine. You should learn to find a photograph. And the key word here is framing. Cartier-Bresson, who was one of my mentors, took pictures of people all around Paris, all around the world. And he used a small camera, not this one. Now the problem with this camera is it's so imposing you can't help but see it. He used a little Leica, it was about this big, and he literally could pop in, take a picture, and leave before anybody even noticed him. So he was just getting pictures that way. If you can't do that, there's a couple of things you can do. Take the picture of the person, pose, but just keep snapping.
Yeah.
Take enough pictures so they feel comfortable. And then what you want to do is even hold the camera like this, where it doesn't look so obvious that I'm taking your picture.
Right.
Until you get the one you want. I believe that a lot of photography is finding the inconsistencies and the juxtapositions of things, or things that maybe don't belong together. So you got this circle of barbed wire. Okay, we've got this, this scrubby thing, and we've got the old fence post. So there's some inconsistencies there. Like, why would I want to snap a picture if it's all just the same? The lighting isn't perfect here because it's pretty shadowy, but I think it's still we're going to get a kind of a cool shot here. This is definitely a black and white photograph. This is definitely a black and white because the colors are so muted, there's nothing dramatic about the colors, but that's a cool shot.
Now, have you shot that before?
I have.
Yeah.
I've noticed that before. So, I don't know, this post does something here to me, so I don't know, I go along until I see something that kind of strikes something. And if I take a picture of this post here, and I make it so the rest of it is blurry, which means I use a really wide opening, I think I got something there.
Now, how do you expose that? Because my camera's going nuts. The post is completely black in the background.
Yeah, well,
very nice and bright.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna do that. But I have my metering will, you know, focus on what I'm focused on, and so it's compensating for that. I may still have to play around with that again in Photoshop, but I think I got a good shot there.
Do you shoot RAW or JPEG?
RAW.
Yeah. And why do you do that?
Because then you've got, what it means is you can take that thing home and play around with it. It hasn't done any messing around. Yeah, I don't want my camera to tell it what to do. I want to do it in the computer.